It is 2 a.m. The room is dark, your body is exhausted, and your brain is absolutely, completely, spectacularly losing its mind. Not about anything important, not about anything you can fix right now, just everything. The thing you said to someone 3 years ago, whether you locked the front door, that email you forgot to send, the meaning of your entire life, all of it, cycling on repeat, getting louder the harder you try to stop it. You tell your brain to stop. It does not stop. You try to think of nothing. There is no such thing as nothing. You count sheep. You count how many hours of sleep you have left. You do the math. It is bad. Now you are anxious about being anxious. Congratulations, you have just discovered one of the strangest, most universal, most deeply human experiences that almost nobody understands. So why does this happen? Why does the human brain, the most sophisticated thinking machine on the planet, completely betray you the moment you close your eyes? The answer goes back further than you think. Much further. Your brain right now, in the dark, running through every embarrassing memory and unresolved worry it can find. That brain is not broken. It is doing exactly what it was built to do. And it was built to do this by a world that no longer exists. Here is what scientists now understand. The human brain does not have an off switch. It was never designed to have one. Neuroscientist Marcus Rachel at Washington University made a discovery in the early 2000s that changed the way researchers think about the resting brain. He found that when people are given nothing specific to focus on, their brains do not go quiet. They light up. A specific network of regions, now called the default mode network, activates whenever the mind is left to wander, and the things this network tends to produce are not random. They are almost always personal, social, emotional, unresolved. In other words, the moment you stop giving your brain a task, it immediately starts working on a different kind of task. The task of you, your relationships, your fears, your past mistakes, your uncertain future. This is not a malfunction. This is the system running exactly as designed. But why would the brain be designed to do this at night when you are trying to sleep? Think about where your ancestors actually slept. Not in a locked apartment on the 14th floor. Not in a room with a deadbolt and a smoke alarm. They slept in the open, on the ground. In groups, yes, but exposed. The dark was not safe. The dark was when predators moved. The dark was when rivals from other groups might approach. The dark was the most dangerous time in any given 24 hours. A brain that fully switched off at night was a brain that did not wake up in the morning. So your brain learned, over hundreds of thousands of years, to stay partially on, to keep scanning, to keep asking, is everything okay? Is there a threat I missed? Is there something I need to deal with before morning? That scanning system was your greatest survival advantage, and now you have brought it into a world where the threats are not lions. They are deadlines. They are conversations that went slightly wrong. They are things you cannot do anything about at 2 a.m. But the scanner does not know that. The scanner just scans. Researcher Matthew Walker, one of the world's leading sleep scientists and author of the most widely read book on sleep published in the last decade, describes the sleeping brain as anything but passive. During the night, your brain is performing critical maintenance, consolidating memories, processing emotions, clearing out metabolic waste through a recently discovered system called the glymphatic system. This is serious biological work, and the brain does not like being interrupted in the middle of it. Here is where it gets even stranger. When you lie down and your brain shifts gears towards sleep, it passes through a transition zone, a liminal state between waking and sleeping, where your conscious control over your thoughts starts to dissolve. You are no longer fully directing what you think about. The default mode network takes over, and it tends to surface exactly the things you have been suppressing or avoiding all day. The conversation you do not want to have. The decision you have been putting off. The feeling you buried under work and distraction for 12 hours. Nighttime does not create these thoughts. It reveals them. Psychologist Daniel Wegner at Harvard spent years studying what he called the ironic process theory. His central finding was brutally simple. The harder you try not to think about something, the more you think about it. He demonstrated this with a now famous experiment. Tell people not to think about a white bear. They cannot stop thinking about a white bear. The act of suppression requires you to constantly check whether you are suppressing successfully, and that checking is itself thinking about the thing. Your brain trying to silence itself is like trying to put out a fire with more fire. This is why telling yourself to relax at night does not work. Trying to force sleep is the enemy of sleep. The brain interprets the effort as a signal that something important must be happening. Why else would you be trying so hard? It elevates its own alertness. It releases small amounts of cortisol. It makes the problem worse in the act of trying to fix it. So what is actually happening in your head at 2 a.m.? Your default mode network is running a kind of internal audit. It is reviewing social situations because social survival was everything to your ancestors. Being excluded from the group, being disliked, being misunderstood, these were not just uncomfortable feelings. They were genuine threats to survival. A brain that monitored and rehearsed social interactions, that replayed past mistakes and simulated future conversations, was a brain that stayed in the group. And staying in the group meant staying alive. The racing thoughts at night are your social survival system running a maintenance check. Every awkward interaction it replays is a simulation designed to help you do better next time. Every future scenario it rehearses is a preparation. Every worry it cycles through is an attempt to solve a problem before it becomes dangerous. None of this is helpful at 2 a.m. All of it made perfect sense for the vast majority of human history. And here is the part that should genuinely change how you feel the next time it happens. The intensity of nighttime thought is not a measure of how anxious or broken or abnormal you are. It is a measure of how human you are. Research by sleep psychologist Allison Harvey at UC Berkeley found that nearly everyone, including people with no diagnosed anxiety or sleep disorders, experiences intrusive thoughts at night. The difference between people who develop insomnia and people who do not is not the presence of the thoughts. It is the relationship with the thoughts. People who catastrophize the experience, who treat every racing thought as evidence that something is wrong, activate the very stress response that guarantees the thoughts will continue. Your brain is not your enemy at 2 a.m. It is a very old machine running a very old program in a world that the program was not designed for. It is checking for threats that are not there. It is solving problems that cannot be solved until morning. It is reviewing social situations that resolved long ago. It is doing its job, just the wrong job, at the wrong time, in the wrong century. The next time you are lying in the dark and your brain will not stop, remember this. The thoughts are not evidence of danger. They are evidence of a brain that was built across hundreds of thousands of years to keep you alive through the night. It just does not know yet that the night is safe. And in a strange way, that relentless, exhausting, deeply annoying refusal to switch off, that is the same system that got every single one of your ancestors to mourning. It got them to mourning, and it will get you there too. If this breakdown changed the way you look at your daily grind, hit that like button and subscribe. We drop new videos every single week. See you inside the next video.